What's up, chat? Got my coffee here. It's Tuesday. We're getting Can't hear on me? Oh my god, I think I do. Oh, right there. Ho ho! I have found your hairball, Inky. What's up, everybody? It's Tuesday. We're getting tactical. It's been exactly slightly more than 24 hours since we went live last, because we started doing a Monday show on Monday mornings talking about lists and stuff. So if you watched that, thank you. If you haven't watched it yet, that's where our undefeated list discussion went this week. We did not do a Monday video. I think, at least for the time being, maybe until the metagame stops being a weird mess, we will probably do a Monday live stream instead of a Monday video. We'll see. If people like it, we'll keep doing that. That's at 10 a.m. Monday, and we'll do it next week as well. But today we're here with Tactical Tuesday, and I was like, what do we talk about today? We could talk about X and 1 lists, which we'll probably do if we have time. But also, I wanted to discuss the upcoming data slate update, which is the expected timeline is on Thursday, but we'll see how things go. So, I mean, who knows if that's actually when it's going to come out. But I've got a wish list here, folks. I made a PowerPoint presentation about my wish list for the October data slate. Is it 100% that it will go down on 02, 03, 10? It's not 100%, but that is typically the timeline. It's likely that they held it because of LGT last week. It almost always comes out on Thursdays, and September was sort of like the deadline, right? There's a January one, I guess September to October. So theoretically, it could hold till the end of the month, but I think that's sort of unlikely. And we're also kind of I don't know. I don't know about y'all, but I think we need one right now. It's we're getting there for sure. Do I think there should be changes to Pariah Nexus? I guess it's a loaded question. Do I think personally there should be changes? Yes. Do I think that would I like changes? I guess that's the real question. Would I like changes to Pariah Nexus? I would like changes to Pariah Nexus. Do I think that there should be? Probably not. Honestly, I think that we should probably stick with the format that we have. But I do think that the mission format itself is not the best. It's not that good. It's not that good. Better fire lanes? Ooh, I don't know. I don't know, chat. We're getting Mactical and Tactical this week. That's true, chat. we got the old MT. The MacTac. So here's what I think we can expect from an upcoming data slate, by the way. I think that's important to sort of establish, because I know that there's going to be some wish listing, and I would love to indulge in wish listing of the I feel like my music's really loud. I'm going to turn it down. Of the mechanical variety. I would love to say, hey, we should probably tone Miracle Dice Generation, and hey, we should probably tone some other stuff.
Double the tactical. Double the tortoise. Double the price on sisters units on Thursday. Yeah, Smile.
We'll get to that, Ryan. Thank you so much for the super chat, for sure. Yeah. Double the price on sisters. Yeah, maybe. But what we shouldn't do is expect to see many rules changes, if rules changes at all. However, I do think that what we could see, first of all, I think that there's rules cleanup they could do. There's stuff like Agents of Imperium transports being able to transport other transports that has not been cleared up yet, which I will almost certainly expect to see. Once this update comes down, I expect to see cleanup on stuff like that. But I don't think that we will see any hard mechanical changes to how any factions work. That said, I do think that Agents of the Imperium has kind of introduced a lot of interesting technology that the team is now kind of like showing their hand that they'll use. The first thing is that they have alternate points cost for units, which is never something that they've done before. They've always released the unit in two separate data sheets when they want it to be included in multiple different capacities, and they kind of did that with Agents of the Imperium, where you have like Battle Sister squads that are a separate unit from the Sororitas Battle Sister squad. But what they also did was that they included separate points values for things, and I think that That's probably a direction that we need to go in right now. And there's a bunch of factions that I think would benefit from that in particular. The Agents FAQ came out last week and didn't mention it. Yeah, mention the nesting doll rhinos. Yeah, I don't know any like competitive formats in which you would be able to play the nesting doll rhinos. I think every TO on the planet is going to disallow it because it is clearly a typo. But if they don't update it, if they don't change it in the next update, then I don't know. To some extent, we should probably, they made their bed and we should sleep in it. They should add that you don't auto-pass Battle Shock in your command phase. Yeah, so like I said, I would not expect to see any rules changes this time around. The rules changes are usually reserved for their 6-month updates, and this is, we're looking at a 3-month update. So the last big rules change we saw was in June when we got the new movement rules, we got the rotation rules. They just like went and revamped a whole ton of stuff. Those changes were great. I love them, especially after the like sort of rebalance that they did. But I would not expect to see even close to that level of scrutiny this time around, and I would not expect to see any core changes or faction changes. We do occasionally get out of sync updates. It's like, yeah, it happens every once in a while, but I don't think that there would be. I wouldn't expect any right now. There's maybe a couple of like very minor things that we can take a peek at. So let's look at exactly sort of what needs to be changed. I was perusing StatCheck, which just updated its numbers actually I think today based on LGT, which is cool. And I think that the picture of the game right now is very much one of... Oh, okay. Thanks, Chrome. Is very much one of the top of the game being in sort of the problem, right? The vast majority of factions is kind of compressed into this really mid-tier category here. And I have a sneaking suspicion that we will likely not see changes to the vast majority of this stuff. I would say from like World Eaters on up through like the Astra Militarum probably, I would not expect to see any changes to your factions. If they are, what I hope is that they would make changes in a way to like improve the internal balance of the codex rather than try to change its overall balance. So, doing things like taking some of the underplayed units and cutting them, for example. Some of the stuff that just like really has data sheets that don't work and just like gives them points cuts. And maybe some of the stuff that's like wildly like out-spammed and tone that stuff down. But I don't expect to see hugely transformative changes to any of those factions. In my opinion, the real problem is like the top 5 or 6 here. I think Genestealer cults are a little bit of an anomaly because their player representation is really, really low. And so their sample size is 63 players versus like Sisters who are 186. Literally 30% of the other factions in the top 5. And so their performance, I think, is based on sort of exceptional performance by faction specialists. And I think that they are currently kind of being unlocked as an army. It feels like there's a lot of archetypes that are still in the process of being optimized, and I would not expect to see any changes to Genestealer Cult for at least a season until we see where they shake up. It seems like it's a faction that can do really well in the hands of a really good player, but not one that is like sort of super consistently winning. So we'll see how that one goes. I'm kind of interested to follow that story. But in my opinion, Space Wolves probably need looking at Oedipus Sororitas 100%, Thousand Suns 100%. Drukhari, in my opinion, probably up in here. I believe the results from this weekend brought their win rate down quite a bit. But previously they were next to Space Wolves, is like the second faction, top faction in the game. They are another faction that has a relatively low player count, so it's not huge, but it is equivalent to some of these other factions at the top. And I think I don't even know if they need like too much of a looking at, maybe just a little adjustment to tone down some of the spamminess. And I do think that these factions at the very top here are largely buoyed by very specific archetypes. that I would like to see rebalanced to make the faction less powerful, but more powerful across the board. So there's like an internal balance problem with all of these factions, where they have one archetype that's incredibly strong. For Space Wolves, it's Thunderwolf Cavalry. For Adeptus Sororitas, it's Bringers of the Flame. For 1,000 Suns, it's just fucking 1,000 Suns good stuff, I guess. It's like Infernal Masters, I think. Drukhari is like kind of all over the place, but they do have some unplayed units. The other thing is that at the bottom tier here, maybe these bottom 5 factions might take a peek, but Space Marines for sure. Compliant Space Marines are just suck. They just are, they're just a nightmare for them, and I think they need some changes. So that is the lens through which I am looking at this data slate update and seeing what to expect. All right, let's look. Let's go through. So top faction stuff. 1,000 Suns. So here's where I say I think it's interesting that Games Workshop is. Oh my God, this is so big on my screen. Why is that? All right, let me see if I can resize that. I didn't even notice. Oh, I know why. Let me fix. Become small. Thank you. Cool. Can we make it a little smaller? All right, we'll do that. That looks a little bit better. All right, 1,000 Suns. Here's the thing. Flamer Rubric Marines are super good, and also Infernal Masters are super good. The rest of the faction is kind of just like, it's mostly what it's got going on. What I would like to see is to have Rubric Marine points broken down into 2 separate categories. I would like to see standard Rubric Marines be, I don't even know if they need to be less expensive, maybe 5 points. If you have 1 or more models of the unit equipped with a Warp Flavor or Warp Flame pistol, I would like to see their points increase. Because Bolter Rubric Marines are playable, but highly inefficient compared to the Flamer version. And right now, every Rubric Marine in existence is equipped with a Warp Flamer. And I think with the combination of the other characters that attach to the units, the Warp Flamer Rubric Marines are way too efficient. The other thing is Infernal Masters are getting Windmill Slammed, 3 of them into top competitive lists. That's too good. Nerf that shit. I would like to see that get upcharged a little bit, so we don't see this like triple Infernal Master all the time forever. I would also like to see Magnus upcharged a little bit because he's really, really good. Yeah, I don't know. I think that would mostly just incentivize people to play different stuff. On the flip side, I do think there's some stuff that could drop in the faction. Demon Princes are like a one-off in some armies where you're playing like tanky 1,000 Suns, and I think you could drop them, especially the Winged one. I think the Winged one... So like the 1,000 Suns Demon Princes have mediocre weapon profiles. They can provide Kabbalistic rituals, which is nice, but they also cost like 200 points, which is a lot. And that's the cost of an entire Rubric Marine squad and an attached Infernal Master, almost with an enhancement. And so the comparison between those 2 things is not particularly strong. I would love to see the 1,000 Suns Demon Princes get dropped a little bit so you could play a little bit more of that like tanky 1,000 Suns variety. Same goes with Scarab Occult Terminators. In fact, I should probably have put this in. I think Terminators, or at least shooty Terminators almost across the board could get cut, which I maybe should have put in my Space Marine thing, but I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. The problem with the Bolt Rubrics and the Scarab Occult Terminators is that they're so resource intensive to run that they just make your army super inefficient, and you should like be rewarded in some way for playing those units, especially now that the index got changed with how their Kabbalistic rituals work. Previously, you could duplicate stratagems on them, and you could duplicate Kabbalistic rituals on them, and you could actually make them do stuff. Now that you can't do either of those things, you're only ever incentivized to play Magnus and stack all your buffs on Magnus. And so that just means that the units that you can't do that on should be cheaper. But the units that everyone takes in triplicate should be more expensive because they're dumb. Scarabs are too cheap already? I mean, maybe, but they don't really do anything. They're almost 40 points a model. For a unit that just requires immense amounts of support to get work done. And don't get me wrong, I don't think that's unique of Scarab Occult Terminators. I think that's true of all all multi-purpose Terminators have the same problem, which is that they're wildly expensive and don't really do anything without tons and tons of help. But I do think that that's something that should be addressed, probably. Being able to generate
Cabal points while in a transport would be huge, but I don't see it happening in a points update.
I don't know if you even need to do that, to be honest. I think that it's fine that there's like a downside to being in a transport. I mean, I think also I'm super biased against transport play. So I think transports in 40k are really dumb right now, and I don't know if I would really want to incentivize people from playing to play more rhinos. They see less play now than they have in the past. But I don't think that we need to buff, transport equipped Thousand Sons. But also, like you said, I don't think that we're going to see that in an update here, for sure. big buffs. Is it coming this week or next week? The scuttlebutt is this week, but it could be in next week potentially. Terminators need cuts in general? Yeah, I think so. And to be honest, I didn't put that in my Space Marine slide, but that can kind of go without saying. Almost every points update, you can be like 5 points off, like Stormbolter Terminators, please. They're almost across the board. Kind of awkward. I think Terminators are expensive units, but accessible to Orc players, Meganobs cost more than Terminators. But they get, well, I don't know. I do also have Meganobs should go down. They got like triple nerfed in the update, and it was too strong, too much. Drukhari, like I said, I don't think Drukhari need actually that much changes. I do think I would like to see them maybe get a little, like their most common archetype, like their triple Archon archetype, get a little bit of a little hit. I would like to see Archons go up just a little bit, maybe 5 points or something, so you're less incentivized to windmill slam 3 of them into every list. I also think the Beastmaster is a really dumb datasheet, and I would like to see the Beastmaster's like 30 wound scout unit changed. It's currently 100 points, 105, I think. It's too cheap. This is not enough points. Yeah, make that thing cost more points. On the flip side, there are some really trash data sheets in this faction that don't see any play. The interesting thing about Drukhari is that their standard builds typically, or it's, I would say, like sort of on average, right? If you look at holistically at the whole faction, basically at some point play essentially every data sheet, right? There are builds that play Rax and Talos, and I guess not Grotesques. You could probably buff Grotesques. They're kind of like the odd man out right now. Chronos are like in every list. The one sub-faction, Cavalite Warriors obviously are incredible, like, Rebirths and all that stuff. The one sort of sub-faction that does not see very much play is the Witch Cult sub-faction. It has very little support in the index. The base data sheets aren't very good. Witches, I would like to see a little bit of a cut, because mostly they are 10 model units, so you're kind of like, you're basically just required to take a Venom almost to bring them down to 5, so you're not overpaying for these like light infantry that are kind of mediocre, especially without an attached character. They're sort of the 0-1 to attach with Lilith Esperax, and then otherwise you don't care about them at all. Hellions are also just like straight garbage. They're like really, really bad, and they're really expensive. I would like to see them go down too, just to incentivize a little bit more play of those data sheets that don't really see that much play. Tactical benefit. All bolt weapons should be strength 5, AP 1. That's some 9th edition thinking there. That's how we got the like 8th edition Tyranny Codex, where they're like every bolt weapon gets like +1 strength and damage. And bolt weapons should be scary, which I do agree. But I think there are interesting ways to make bolt weapons good in the 10th edition sort of like ecosystem. And they did it a little bit with like Fire Discipline. I think the Fire Discipline, it was originally called Boulder Discipline, because I think the intention of the ability was to attach it into a big boulder brick and make them really good at shooting. And effects like that, like lethal sustain plus rerolls and like improved criticals, is just really good for high volume weapons. The problem is that it's better on weapons that do 2 damage instead of 1 damage. So the issue with Space Marines is that Space Marines have so many highly specialized units that you're always incentivized to take the one that does the most damage with your buffs. I would be interesting if there were like characters that explicitly built like buff, like gave supercharged bolt their weapons or something. I think that would be cool. There's definitely ways to do it with leaders, if they wanted to go down that road in a future release. Hope they give drugs effects back in the next data slate. I don't know if I would see like massive rules updates for Drukhari. I would expect to see something like that in the Codex, though, for sure. Aggressors with fire discipline for AP to ignore cover is the dream builder profile. Yeah, that's true. And to be fair, though, aggressors get a lot of their damage out of their grenade launchers, right? All right, let's address the elephant in the room here, chat. The second elephant in the room is Adepta Sororitas. This is sort of the same situation as like Thousand Suns, and I guess to a lesser extent Drukhari. And like I mentioned at the top, a lot of the problem here is that very specific factions have very specific archetypes that are like wildly overpowered. And it's even sadder for Sororitas because they're the only one of those factions that we're talking about at the upper echelon that has a codex. They have a whole ass codex with a bunch of detachments in it, but you only ever see Bringers of the Flame because it's really stupid. So I would like to see that whole ass archetype get nerfed. You know what? Fuck it. Every Sisters list is double Dominion squads, triple Immolator, triple Castigator, Morvenval, a Paragon Warsuit team, the Triumph of St. Catherine, double Seraphim. Nerf all that shit. It doesn't need to be big. You just have to disincentivize the composition, like that entire composition, right? So you don't have to be like, hey, everything gets plus 50 points and now you can't play any of it. But if you gave all of that stuff plus 5 points, then suddenly that would tax that specific list quite a bit. And I think that I would like to see that. I do think, in my opinion, Morvenval and the Triumph of St. Catherine need to get like just whacked upside the head. They have way too many abilities and that are too synergistic with the faction. Those two models in particular should get just nuked from orbit. I don't think, like, kind of idiosyncratically that, like, Paragon Warsuits, for example, are, like, particularly strong by themselves. The problem is that they synergize so well with Morvenval and vice versa. The first Paragon Warsuit squad with Morvenval is, like, 4 or 5 times more powerful than the second Paragon Warsuit squad without Morvenval. Despite the fact that she's only, like, another 160 points or whatever. Yeah, that stuff is dumb. And then the other stuff, I don't know. You maybe, like, plus 5 points it or whatever, and then you call it a day. The other thing is that there's huge swaths of the codex that do not see play because their data sheets are just a little silly. Repentia are 90 points for 5 models, which is a lot. That's a lot of points. They are very good. They have a lot of rerolls and stuff, but you could cut them by a couple of points. Zephyrim, if you compare them to other jump infantry, very expensive. You don't necessarily need to do that because they typically do less damage, although they do have better charging. So it's a trade-off. Regular Battle Sisters, there's no reason to take them outside of Battle Line synergies over Dominion squads. Just make them cheaper than Dominion squads. What are we doing? Penitents and Mortifiers is interesting. Penitent Host is really good, but it doesn't see any play with that stuff. I think that it is, if I remember correctly here, the Penitent Engine advances and charges, which I think is a much better ability. And I would like to see. I actually am not even sure that those need to necessarily get a discount. Yeah. So because they do have that sort of internal synergy, they can push super far. They also have like a kind of okay defensive profile. Mortifiers feel kind of the opposite. They have like a fight on death, which is good, but I feel like most of the time you're just going to get shot and die instead of getting charged and dying. So I think that maybe you could actually cut that one. And their points values are kind of similar, despite the fact that Mortifiers have just like a strictly worse ability. In most situations. I don't want to say it's every situation, but in most situations. Depends on the army you're playing, obviously. You could play against something that's entirely melee-oriented, and Mortifiers are like a stone wall, but maybe don't make your armies entirely melee oriented. Yeah, the pluses and minuses is increase or decrease points. Plus means increase points, minus means decrease points. You guys got it, chat. If you up points on all those units, you not only kill the flame detachment, but every sister's detachment. That's why we're trying to make other... Like, that's why I think the goal should be... I'm not trying to do anything. I'm just wishlisting. I think the goal should be that that you should try to make the other detachments more playable. The faction as a whole, and I think even Sisters players could agree with me here, the faction as a whole is too strong. Straight up. So the total power level needs to come down, but I think that right now... That's being tent-poled by Bringers of the Flame. So we have to nerf Bringers of the Flame and buff the other stuff. Which is Army of Faith, for things like Jump Pack Infantry, and Penitent Host. Which is what I would like to see changed. I also think that if the faction is entirely... Like, if the only way that you can conceive of playing Sisters is with 3 Castigators, I think... I don't know. Maybe there's probably... There's other units in that codex. We just watched like Triple Exorcist Sisters play the other day at Champions Cup and do very well. I think that there are other archetypes beyond like the just the straight up exact Bringers of the Flame list. Make Saint Celestine actually do something. Saint Celestine's incredible. If you don't think Saint Celestine's good, boy, do I have news for you. Saint Celestine's very good. Does anyone miss 9th edition's character auras? I do a little bit. I did like 9th edition's character mechanics, but I'm a little bit of like a hero hammerhead. I like playing like a bunch of independent characters, and I like playing the single model, like the single entity units. So I think I like them more than most people would. GW nerf means make them unplayable. I don't know if that's entirely the case. Usually, I think that has been the case in the past. And certainly they have done that. Like, we just talked about that Mega Knobs change where they literally like got their ability nerfed, got their points cost nerfed, and got their synergies within detachments nerfed, like 3 different ways. But for the most part, they've been better about taking a very light touch with things. And that's what I would like to see. I don't think any of this stuff, beyond maybe the Triumph of St. Catherine, I don't think any of this stuff should get like, plus 50 points, make it trash, and then also like remove all of its data sheet abilities or whatever. I think it just needs a little bit of a little bump, little boop. Thousand Suns got nerfed last update. I would say Thousand Suns got side graded. The weird thing about Thousand Suns is that they, like most Thousand Suns players, I think will agree with me here, is that they lost the flexibility in their abilities, but they gained like new ways to use them. Because previously, like you could do a lot more with Kabbalistic rituals because you could cast it multiple times from the same psyker, and you could target one unit multiple times with the same power. But now you can use like things like Echoes of the Warp on anything. So they traded a lot of their flexibility for the ability to, for example, warp side on turn 1. So I would say like largely it became a side grade. It definitely was less powerful. But the other thing was that Thousand Suns were like this. They were like the Jaws like fin out of the water the whole time since the beginning of the game of the edition. They were like slowly approaching the boat. And every time the boat got nerfed and its engine slowed down, like the fin would get a little bit closer because they were so strong from the get-go. They were just wildly overshadowed by all the stupid shit that came out at the start of the edition. And that was kind of, I think, what ended up happening because Thousand Suns didn't really get changed through like the end of, basically through... almost like the April update essentially, and then they kind of just like exploded out of nowhere because they without really many changes because everything else got nerfed. All this stuff above them got nerfed, which was, I don't know, it was a weird trajectory. You could kind of see it coming. You'd be like, these guys do like 1,000 mortal wounds. Why am I taking 1 million damage from this faction? And then like out of the blue without any changes, they just got insanely powerful because all the really broken stuff got hit. The other really broken stuff, I should say. Are Hiveguard ever going to be playable? You just bring back 8th edition Hiveguard, chat, and then we'll be back. They'll be back. Make them equivalent profile would be like strength 9, AP 2, ignore cover, D3 damage, indirect fire. Dealing 30 mortals every game, yeah. And that's what they used to do, but also Eldar would do that without rolling dice. Like at least Thousand Suns had to roll to hit and then roll the devastating wound. Eldar were like, here is a selection of dice. Take 20 mortal wounds. And you'd be like, okay, cool. I'm having a good time. Am I streaming the DreamHack team event? I'm not, no. I will be streaming the Battle for Salvation GT next week, though. Not this coming weekend, but next weekend. Thought we'd see more Null Maidens to counter Thousand Suns. It's like an imperfect counter. And it's awkward, like... Thousand Suns are still, they're very powerful, but they're still a relatively rare faction because they're very difficult to play still. So not a lot of people pick them up. So teching specifically for them, unless you are very, very ready for other matchups, you run the risk of just like not seeing them and then just playing an underpowered army for like one specific matchup. It's kind of it's weirdness about like the way that army construction works in 40k. It's very difficult to like holistically include like wholesale counters to a specific archetype because like you can't sort of contort yourself into this build that like beats Thousand Suns because 99% of the other players in the game are not playing Thousand Suns. When you hit Thousand Suns, you'll kill them, but everyone else, it was awkward. Grey Knight Librarians in 1,000 Suns feel so satisfying. Yeah, you'll be like Vortex of Doom, and then like Psychic Dominion. You're like, not an attack. Can't Psychic Dominion this, idiot. Just don't shoot them with your Stormbolter first. That's the secret technology. You're not allowed. Don't do it. They'll immediately trigger their 4+ Feel No Pain, even though it doesn't do anything. They should expand the Psychic keyword to have benefits. Yeah, it's weird. Like, there's some specific stuff where it has benefits, right? But it's like, for the most part, it's just a straight-up downgrade. Unless you're specifically playing Thousand Suns. In which case you have, like, internal synergies. I would like them to do more, like, give them, like, bring Neurothrobes back as not a unit champion or something and be like, +1 to hit for psychic weapons in an aura. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. Suddenly, if there were internal faction synergies for your psychic weapons, that would make more sense, but I don't know. And then everybody brings Hounds of Mordecai. I'd love to see more Hounds of Mordecai chat. I think Reavers are cool. I play Vanguard in Space Marine too. They're just so trash in 40k. Alright, we talked about Adeptus Sororitas. Let's move on. Let's move on to the trash factions. Adeptus Custodes. I don't know if these guys are trash. They just seem sort of below average. But I was like running through their codex. I think right now there's a weird tension between Alaris Custodians and Venatari Custodians. And it feels like Alaris Custodians lose out every time. And I would like to see more of that like maneuver-focused gameplay rather than just like windmill slamming 3 Wardens into a list. So I would be interested in buffing the Terminators. I don't know if you need I think a big, huge buff is probably Degenerate because that datasheet's incredibly strong. But if you cut them a little bit, then I think it would look much better in the comparison because they, it's way more difficult to deliver them than it is for Venatari Custodians, and the points value is like almost the same right now. They'll actually shoot better is the only buff. Virtus Praetors and Dawn Eagle Jetbikes are fucking horrible. Give them different buffs, please. And then also I was looking through and I was reminded of the Contemptor Dreadnought profiles chat. Do you know how much a Contemptor Dreadnought costs for an Adeptus Custodes army? At least the Forge World Contemptors. I actually don't remember if they still have the Relic Contemptor Dreadnought. I think that they do. Is that in there? Oh, Venerable Contemptor Dreadnought, not Relic Contemptor Dreadnought. Yeah. So a Contemptor Dreadnought with like a 3 damage melee weapon and a single Melty Melta costs them 170 points for like 10 wounds. 170. You could buy like a whole ass Gladiator Lancer for 10 points cheaper with a very similar defensive profile and a gun that shoots 60 inches. Like, it's just too expensive. These data sheets move 6, chat. They move 6 inches. Why do they cost 170 points? That's too many points. I would like to see the Contemptor Dreadnoughts cut a little bit, because I don't even think that, like, there's very little situation in which you would want to take this profile, or even like a Contemptor like Galatus or something, over just more Custodian Infantry, because you're talking about the cost of 4 Custodian Infantry, which is like, it's less toughness, but it's the same wounds and save characteristics. It's higher OC, more shots, like more flexibility, and like honestly, like way better melee output. So like, why are these so expensive? It's 175 for that model. I don't know. That's too many points, I think, in my opinion. And you can't attach characters to them. They don't get all of like the faction synergies for having guys. You can't put a blade champion on a Galatus Dreadnought. Just cut this points value, dude. Move 6 vehicles should not cost more than like 150 points. At least it comes back on it too. Yeah, I mean, that one is good, I guess, to be fair. But like, I don't know. It's a 2+ ability. It can fail. And also you're getting 1 multi-melted back. Like, I don't know. You're not exactly like resurrecting Gilliman, you know what I mean? This one might have been. Nah, that's not worth 170. You're just gonna shoot. You're just gonna charge it with something and do 1 damage to it. Boop. A Lars need 5 wounds or a feel no pain, maybe. Trash coming back on a 2 is still trash. Custodes is the only faction for nerfing below a 30% win rate. Brutal. Sorry, Custodes players, get wrecked. Custodes they tend to snowball a lot. If there's like a metagame where people can't deal with their defensive profiles, they get really, really good. But I don't think that that's one that we're in right now. So yeah, maybe some minor buffs to that stuff, just to make it a little bit more interesting. I don't even know if that stuff will see play, to be honest, but at least we'll be making an effort. Chaos Knights. Chaos Knights are also kind of low in the win rate, which is interesting to me because they seem to be like relatively successful. I don't think you can, in good conscience, like buff War Dogs because they're super good. So and then like any War Dogs you buff just like turns into it's so compounded, right? Because as soon as you take 5 points off War Dogs, it's like you get an entire extra unit into the Chaos Knights army. And it's not necessarily a War Dog, but it is a utility or something. And it starts to snowball very quickly. You could just say, oh, hey, I'm going to buff the Big Knights again, which probably they need because they don't... Like, they're sort of priced in line with the Imperial Knights ones, but the Imperial Knights ones have way better internal synergy than the Chaos Knights ones. So you could say, hey, give the Big Knight buffs again. But for the most part, I don't know if people are actually going to take them. I think the big one is actually buffing their enhancements, or reducing the points value of their enhancements. Their enhancements are priced assuming that you're going to play them on a Big Knight. But first of all, you aren't, because you're not taking them most of the time anyway. And second of all, even if you were, why are we disincentivizing people from playing Big Knights? If you want to take 1 or 2 Big Knights to make use of the cool enhancements, why are we paying 30 or 40 points per enhancement, which is fucking insane? And there are some incredible ones, right? Like Panoply of the Cursed Knight for Armor Contempt is huge, or of Dread gets played all the time, usually as a points filler. But we could cut the points value on those, and that would not only make them more viable for not Big Knights, and their ergo increase the power of the faction in a little way, but also we could more highly incentivize playing the big stuff. Is this the most killy meta? No, I don't think so. That's, look at there are lists that are entirely based on just like surviving in the middle of the table right now. That's how like Dark Angels Gladius Task Force is succeeding and stuff. I would say that it is far from the most killy metagame. In 10th edition, early 10th edition was probably hyper killy because everyone was like keyed up to. Everyone was trying to survive fucking Eldar. And you could not. Your defensive profile didn't matter against them. So I think like early 10th edition was way more dangerous than this one. And then yeah, previous editions like 9th edition, everything died. If you were in line of sight, you were immediately dead instantly. Chaos Knights need more rules than anything. Yeah, but the problem with it, like, we can't prognosticate about rules because we're not going to see it for a while, even if they do, even if they are going to change it. Unless they do, they have kind of like gotcha'd us in the past. But I'm gonna assume that they will not change any mechanics this time around. Remember leaving an orc army with 9 models alive before his first turn? Yeah, for sure. New rules in January? Yeah, that's when we'll get it. Alright, chat. Orcs. Orc stuff. Orc stuff, I think, alongside the other... a lot of the other factions, I actually think, unironically, Orc Warhorde is like, okay. I don't think it's great, but I do think it's alright. And in the hands of a good player, it can see some success. We just saw it at LGT. It does have to get lucky a little bit. But I think the real weakness that Orcs have right now, and the reason that they're so inconsistent currently, is that they are... almost entirely melee focused. You could take Ludas. We talked about Burna Boys yesterday, which is actually kind of a cool unit. And so they have some units that are range focused, but what they don't do is shoot almost at all. I don't think it's really like that effective to just continuously buff their melee units. Like there's stuff that's already good, it's just stuff that hits you in melee. There is some hybrid units, stuff like Kill Rigs could see a little bit more play, which would maybe sort of enhance the faction. In a broader spectrum, but I think right now the problem with the Orcs is that they only melee for the most part. That is not a good place for a faction to be, unless you're World Eaters, in which case your melee attacks are fucking nuts. Orcs are not World Eaters. They get to be World Eaters for one turn, and then they stop being World Eaters for the rest of the game. But even then, that's not even working out for World Eaters that well right now. They're doing just fine. But not they're not like killing everyone. I would love to see more of the orc alternative game plans be enhanced. So I'd like to see points cuts on, well, Mega Knobs, first of all, they got over-nerfed. I don't even think that they were that good when they had the 4+ Feel No Pain. I think they were fine, but they were heavy infantry that you could just answer with anything that beats heavy infantry. I made a whole video about it when they came out. But stuff like Killicans are like a pretty good profile. They have they're kind of a boatload of wounds, pretty okay saves, and Feel No Pain. But like all orc shooting, they're really inconsistent, so you sort of need a volume from them. And right now, they're just a little bit too expensive to try to spam in large numbers. You could give them a cut. Buggies are straight trash. I don't even know if giving them a points cut is gonna help them, but fuck, maybe we could make an effort, even if we just make them into like a big unit that you use to wall off your deployment zone or something. That would at least give them a little bit more of a place to live. And then also the Titanic Walkers. They're things like Morkanauts and Gorkanauts are a slightly worse profile than a knight, with no internal sort of faction synergies outside of maybe Dreadmob. You get a little bit of buffs. They have worse weapon profiles than a knight, but they cost around the same as a knight. And they don't have super heavy walker. Like, they have all of these downsides. But if you buffed them, they could incentivize orcs to play this more hybrid game plan. And I would like to see the points values on those things go down. We shall start of round powers or start of turn and last a round. Yeah, so the thing with I think that there's this desire to allow you to use them in a defensive manner. And there's some stuff that I think just like straight up doesn't work if they occur at the start of your turn. If you have things that buff your defensive, like your defensive stats, and they work only at the start of your turn, then if your opponent goes first, you're just boned. Like, you can't use them on top of one, so you have to assume that you don't have them because you don't know who's going first. So I think there is an argument for start of round things to happen. like to happen in that timing. I wish that WoW just said, like at the start of any turn, you know, and then they last until that player's next turn. Would probably be the way to do it. So you could do it either or. Killer cans are annoying. Yeah, I mean, they're good, right? But the problem is that, like, they're kind of inconsistent to use right now. They're answered by things that answer heavy infantry, so it's not like they're just unkillable. And currently, orcs, like, the most competitive orc detachment is just playing Warhorde again. And I think that what we need to do is give them more game plans, more viable game plans. And I think that they're right on the cusp. That Dread Mob is, like, okay, but it's not amazing, but it's okay. And you buff it a little bit, and suddenly we're off to the races. Fix WoW timing. I would also like to see a fixed WoW timing, but we're not going to see mechanical changes probably in this update. The WoW timing is very stupid though, and I don't disagree. It's already unfortunate, and I wish, like, this happens every edition for orcs, is that they have this huge benefit going first, right? They typically have lots of infiltrators, forward operators, and a huge boost of speed, which tends to be really strong on the top of round 2. So if you get the opportunity to move first, screen your opponent, prevent them from moving and stopping you, then set up for a turn 2 push, like, there's nothing that your opponent can do about it if you're going first. In 10th edition, on top of that, they also get the ability to proactively WoW if they're going first. So it's compounded. They're already, like, mechanically incentivized to go first, and then also they have this ability that works better if they go first. And I wish that, like, they would just from the ground up reevaluate this faction, and maybe we do something different so that they aren't this thing where you just, like, roll to go first and then win, or roll to and, like, go second and just get shit on. And I mean, if you had more guns, it would be a lot more reasonable, a lot more reliable, and I think that's where I'd like to see them for sure. Love to see some more Beast Snagga play. They already see a lot of play, to be honest. I don't know if we could get, like, that many more Beast Snaggas. Is it a problem to give them a slightly weaker one, but they always go first? It would be kind of boring, but I mean, maybe. As someone who likes who appreciates being able to deploy knowing who's going first or second, I would like that. But I don't think that the game has been designed in mind. Like, the structure of missions and stuff is very is very dependent, and terrain layouts and things is very dependent on not knowing who's going first or second. And I think that, like, the whole face of the game changes if that's not random. Which, to be clear, I would like, but I think that, you know, we're a little late for that. It would be cool though. Send me a BBS. Bring more craft beer? Yes, please. Bring me all the beer. I'll take all the beer. Stompa should not be 800 points. Probably not. Yeah. Probably not. I would like to see them get buffed. Army roll is good, but we need speed walk to support other detachments. Yeah, I agree. I almost said that I would like to see bikers get buffed in this, but I think the biker profile is good. Maybe you see, like, maybe you want Death Killer War Trikes or, like, the biker attachments to be better rather than, like, bikers themselves. But, like, orcs already have, like, they're right on the cusp. Their data sheets are so good, especially if they're under WoW. But it's inconsistent if they get to use them optimally. All right, chat. I think the one thing I would maybe put in here is maybe we drop probably the Hunter and the Killer rig. The Hunter rig is really trash. You could cut that one, like, quite a bit because I think it's, like, super unplayable. The Kill rig is really good, but it's slightly too expensive. I think it's like 200 plus. Where is that thing? But that is a thing that's, like, it allows the army to sustain a little bit more. Oh, it's only 170 actually. No, actually, I think this thing's fine. I wouldn't say about this. Actually, 170 is, like, okay. All right, you compare this to the fucking Contemptor Dreadnought, chat. The Contemptor Dreadnought gets 1 multi-melta and 5 3-damage melee attacks for 100 for the exact same points value. This thing, to be fair, it's only a 3+ save, not a 2+ save, but it has 60% more wounds. It's a higher OC. It buffs either itself or another unit within 12 for +1 strength and potentially even lethal hits. It has an auto-hitting strength 12 AP3 24-inch range weapon, plus other ranged weapons, and it has a total of 14 melee attacks, 4 of which are 3 damage. And that's the same points value as the stupid Contemptor Dreadnought. And it's a transport. It transports a whole ass unit of guys. This thing's good. Don't buff this. It's already good. And it sees play. The downside is it's like a little bit awkward to hide. I think it's really big. It's certainly bigger than a Contemptor Dreadnought. Also, Feel No Pain. Yeah, it doesn't have the invuln save, but it does have a Feel No Pain. Beast Naga should go down. So Beast Naga see play, though. Like, most lists include a Beast Boss and Beast Naga boys. Am I wrong? Am I a crazy person? Brian Sipe did at LGT this weekend. With a new pivot, it's easier to move. That's true, actually. Does it gain movement off the pivot? It's not that big, is it? Commandos are too expensive. I don't know. Maybe we stop buffing forward operators and maybe we try to maybe we nerf forward operators instead of buffing them. Maybe that would make the game better because everyone has to take them right now. It gains a little. Okay, sick. Yeah, all right. Well, I haven't played against it since the new update, and it was kind of a terror before that. I think it was underplayed, to be honest. It was just a little awkward to move around terrain features. Squeakhawks should be reduced a little bit. How many points are Squeakhawks? They are huge units. They're like, they used to be, for a while they were like 22 points or something insane. They were super cheap, but the Codex bumped their value a lot, right? Because it added the knob to the unit. They're 40? Yeah, that's probably too many for 3 wounds. Yeah, you could add them to the list for sure. Don't put Warbikers on there. Put these guys here. $40 points for a 3-wound infantry model is a little bit tough. That's a tough sell. Or mounted. Not even infantry. Worse than infantry. Mounted model. All right, chat. Let's do it. Let's talk about fucking Space Marines. Could we destroy 3-inch Deep Strike? Do we need to? I guess, like, I don't know, maybe. I did have a Grey Knights section. I'm actually not sure where Grey Knights end up. It seems like they're very inconsistent right now. And that would be an army that would maybe need sort of like a Deep Strike kind of revision. But I almost wonder if Grey Knights are a little bit mechanically broken. I think I would maybe like to see like Mists of Deimos get a look at, because I think that they end up in Mists of Deimos and Sigil of Exigence, like the reactive abilities end up like polarizing their matchups quite a bit. Either you can answer Mists of Deimos or you can't. And if you can't answer Mists of Deimos and they have the capacity to kill you, you lose the game. And if your defensive profiles are too strong, but you or you can answer Mists of Deimos, then you probably win. And that's like a problematic thing, I think, honestly. Generally speaking, I think the 3-inch Deep Strike's okay. Like, I think the one place, outside of the Mists of Deimos sort of interaction, the one place I think that it might get a little abusive is Necrons, but I don't know. There's not that many in the game right now that are super huge. Grey Knights or Grey Nemesis Dread Knights, yeah. Yeah, I think the standard Nemesis Dread Knight probably needs another touch. Like maybe 5 or 10 points or something. But the Nemesis Grandmaster is probably okay.
Non-compliant SM, it rubs the Marnius Calgar on its skin again or else it gets the hose again.
Don't put the image in my head of rubbing Marnius Calgar on my skin, shit. Is that the secret to healthy skin? You rub some Marnius Calgar juice on there? Thank you for the super chat. When's the new data site supposed to drop? Probably Thursday. Either this week or next week, I imagine. You can only miss one thing. Yeah, but like the whole design of armies is that they their goal of the Grey Knights player is to give you one thing that they will miss, right? It's not like, oh, well, you can only miss one thing. They're like, yeah, I know. That's why the thing is going to be these 10 Terminators in front of you, which I have presented to you to like fuck with your entire turn and like make you roll 9 charges out on me or whatever. There's this like line of play where you can be like, well, you can't miss everything, and I think the situations in which that becomes like a viable answer to Mists of Deimos are ones where you're probably beating the Grand player anyway, because I don't think they're very good. if they've presented their whole army to you and can only Mists of Deimos one thing, I think you might win anyway. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me, chat. All right, chat. Let's talk about some fucking Space Marines. So, here's the deal. Non-compliant Space Marine chapters are too good. Compliant Space Marine chapters have the lowest win rate in the game. I think part of it is that no competitive players will touch them. First of all, a lot of their archetypes got nerfed because of the Rites of Battle nerf and Gilliman getting hit by that. There is also very little incentive to play them next to supplement chapters, because the supplement chapters have like literally double the options of Space Marine chapters. Like Dark Angels, for example, have an insane number of like detachments available to them. They have like 11 or 12 detachments. That's fucking nuts. Plus they have additional units. Plus they have additional characters, and a lot of that stuff is really good. I think that Deathwing Knights probably need a slight increase. They're a unit that gets spammed in triplicate a lot, and I think that's a good indicator of a unit that's probably too good. I don't think they're like unbeatable or like this insane thing that is ruining the metagame right now. But I do think that you maybe get a little bit of a hit. They have one of like the trashiest epic heroes in the entire game. I was looking through the Dark Angels epic heroes, and some of them, like most of them, are very good. Ezekiel doesn't see play, but he actually doesn't look quite as bad as I was expecting him to. Asmodai is, I think, really good and probably underplayed. Belial is fucking horribly trash. And he costs like 80 points. Give that guy a points cut. He's so bad. And, just give us make him just this cheap idiot hero who can like run around and be a 2 damage melee weapon or something. But like he's 80 points and he basically doesn't have a leadership ability, and he has a really bad combat ability. He's so bad. Lionel Johnson is cool and like iconic for the faction. Doesn't see any play really. Even with the most recent buffs to Primarchs, I would maybe give him a little bit of a buff to go along with the Deathwing Knights. But that would be my changes for Dark Angels. Blood Angels, I hope that this update comes with the points. That's it. Just give us points, please. I don't know how much they cost. Are they good? I don't know. Maybe. And then Space Wolves. I think Space Wolves, it's Thunderwolves. Thunderwolves too good. Make them bad. Make them less good. Anything that we take like 27 of in a normal list, almost regardless of the detachment, and call it a day. Too strong. Give those like +5 points apiece, or maybe even 10, and then call that good. I also think, and this hurts my heart to say, because he's like such a good force multiplier for multiple cool melee archetypes, but I think Logan Grimnar's ability is too strong and he needs to be nerfed. Probably he's like 100 points on foot right now. You could probably put him to like 120 or 130, and he'd probably still see play, to be honest. But Space Wolves are currently the most winningest faction in the game, and I do think that their unique units are almost entirely the reason for that. So they need some lovin' in terms of points increases. How about capping them to a maximum of 2 units instead of 3? I mean, you could do that, but that will not happen. So that would also probably be fine. But I think if you just price them at a point where people are incentivized to only take unit 2 instead of 3, then we're probably fine. Agent X, the rare spatial that hates Thunderwolf Cavalry. Hell yeah, dude. Non-Thunderwolf Cavalry Space Wolf is base as hell. The one Thunderwolf guy that I like is Herald Deathwolf, but he's also probably too strong. He's like the same points value as many foot characters. He is, I believe, the same points value as fucking Belial. And you put those two models next to each other, and one of those things is not like the other. Let's look at this is Herald Deathwolf. Let's look at this fucking guy here, chat. This is like it's pure Space Wolf bias. This model is 85 points. He has a once per phase damage blank. Once per phase after the saving throw. It's better than every other ablative armor. He has a leadership ability that is not irrelevant. He has 9 attacks. 9 attacks. 6 of which are strength 6 APT 2 damage. Look at this fucking idiot. He's 6 wounds T6. The same points value, chat. This is the same points value. Look at these abilities. These are horrible. On a critical hit, you get precision. Cool. Thank you. I love having basically like the game's worst beneficial weapons keyword randomly and not being able to rely on it. I guess he's precision himself, so he like epic challenges for free. Cool. All right. He has a 2 damage Bulger, and then he does like a mortal wound thing. Sometimes for the same points value, and he's a move 5 Terminator versus this man who's 7 wounds in T6 and moves 10, and it's like OC2 for some reason. These are the same cost. Are you kidding me? Too cheap. Herald Deathwolf. It's rampant Space Wolves bias, and I won't stand for it. Also, his name is Deathwolf. He's very silly. Yeah. Love to see the diversion chapters locked out of the base Space Marine attachments. Yeah, so there's a bunch of like kind of proposals for ways that you could change. You could rebalance the difference between those. Again, I think that's all sort of mechanical rule stuff that I don't think we're going to see this week. This update. At least wolf bots are sick. I agree. Wolf bots are cool. All right. So that's my thoughts for Codex non-compliant stuff. Black Templars are like the odd one out right now. They have a really bad win rate, but I think that's because a lot of people just like drop them like a rock after they stop being able to spam a bunch of vehicles. And I don't know how wide their playership, like their playership, like play rate is right now. It is extremely low. So I think, I don't know, I would hold out on Black Templars. They're also not like trash. They're not doing well, but they're around the same level as Chaos Space Marines, which I think, as has been showcased in the last couple of weeks by the ridiculous number of Chaos Space Marine event wins, the faction, despite having a low win rate, is actually incredibly strong. And I feel like Black Templars have a similar thing going on. They're just not really played currently. So I don't know what I would do about Black Templars, or even if we need to do something. We have more Space Marines to talk about, though. Regular ass Chaos Space Marines. Here's the thing. Jump Pack Assault Intercessors are really stupid. Nerf that shit. They're very dumb. That unit is wildly undercosted. They need to be 10 to 15 points higher, at least. That's all I have to say about that. If I could point to a single unit in the Space Marine Codex that I think is incredibly overpowered, I think it's that one. All the other units, probably fine. Here's the thing, though. I would love for... now that we see that codexes are getting divergent points values... So we have like Imperial agents with in-faction points values and out-of-faction points values. We got to do that for Space Marines. Just give them a little slash in some of their points values and be like slash a slightly higher number, and that means that it's for non-compliant chapters. And then you could do things like make Land Raider Redeemers cheaper so that for compliant chapters, but more expensive for non-compliant chapters. Then you can actually play Salamanders with your Land Raider Redeemers and your Vulcan buffs without paying the wildly upcharged version that Dark Angels gave us, because Dark Angels kept spamming like a bunch of Fire Discipline aggressors inside. That isn't a mechanical change. We're not going through and changing the core rule, the faction rules or the core rules. That would just be an update, an addendum inside the Munitorum Field Manual that I think would improve that internal balance significantly. And I also don't think they need to do it for every single unit. I think that there are very specific units that are very strong and potentially have very strong. What's the word? Like sort of synergies inside the non-compliant chapters, and I would like to see those get nerfed. Can we get cuts for all the Space Marine infantry that never see play? I mean, sure. Why not? Let's cut Reavers again. How many points are Reavers right now? If they're more than 70, I'll riot. Survey says 85. Fuck me. What would you rather have, chat? Jump Pack Assault Intercessors, which have a strictly better melee profile, do mortal wounds on the charge, or Reavers, which are 5 points more expensive, and Scout. They have Scout. Oh, and they can move over terrain, which they can do already because they're infantry. Or you could take grav shoots on them so they deep strike just like Jump Pack Assault Intercessors do. Which would you rather take, chat? Fucking horrible. What a bad Digi. Why do people hate Reavers? Why does GW hate these guys so much? Like 15 points off them. Make them 70 points. Make them... How many points is the Intercessor Squad right now? 80? They need to be at least in line with Intercessors, right? Because they have worse guns and no objective secured, but they get Scout. Yeah, 80 points. At least the same as Intercessors. Probably 75. They could be 60 and you still wouldn't take them. But you could take them in addition to Scouts. That'd be cool. They would still be strictly worse than Scouts, that's true. The problem is that Space Marine has too many infantry squads. But yes, please buff like all the shitty infantry. Also, Terminators. Regular-ass fucking Terminators. Too expensive. How many points is a regular-ass Terminator squad? Like 35 points a model? Exactly 35 points a model. Probably we could go to 32. And I still wouldn't see play, but you could think about it. Yeah, here's the other thing, too. So, in addition to... I accidentally turned on my face tracking on my camera. Sorry, chat. I'm sure that's very distracting. Either in addition to or in lieu of unique costs for the compliant chapters, I would also like to see the compliant epic heroes get an additional discount. Kind of over and above like normal characters in the faction. There needs to be an incentive to play the compliant chapters. Right now, the only mechanical incentive that you have is access to their epic heroes. But those epic so you have to make those epic heroes extra good to compete with all of the additional options that the non-compliant chapters have. So like even I think Calgar is probably the one that maybe is like maybe doesn't need any help because he's the one good thing he's the one guy who's really good. But if we look at like random character Space Marine captains, right? So like I don't know. So here's Sicarius. He's 85, as many points as Herald fucking Deathwolf. And he gives you he's not actually bad. He gives you assault, he gives you scout, and you get a reactive move. But this should be like inexcusably cheap. You know, like maybe less so for the Space Marine heroes, but like put them to 70 or 75 points or something like that. So that you get these like super cheap characters who have really cool utility, and then you're incentivized to actually take them instead of just taking the stuff that's like mathematically better that's in the non-compliant chapters. And there's a bunch of opportunities to do stuff like that, you know. Like what if the benefit that we had for playing like Imperial Fists, right, is that we get to take Torgaradon, and Torgaradon's like 70 points with like it's this fucking nuts profile, right? Torgaradon's like unironically good. He's not very good in comparison to getting access to like Azrael and Deathwing Knights, but if he's super cheap, then suddenly you value his profile more highly, and now like Imperial Fists actually become a real faction that you would consider next to. Like I could pay extra points, you know, I could pay 100 plus points for Azrael, or I could pay half that much or 30% less for a character who doesn't have the same amount of utility, doesn't unlock the same options, but is sort of equally a beatstick, who's incredibly efficient. I think that would be a good way to incentivize people to actually play those chapters. Gilliman and the Lion need to be the same cost. Yeah, so that also goes for Gilliman, and I think extra for Gilliman. The issue with Gilliman is that he was already kind of getting pushed out, but he enabled a lot of like really cool archetypes because he was the only instance of repeatable stratagems on non-attached units with Master of Battle. And then they just removed that ability. This ability just gives you it's just a -1 CP cost every turn, which is like good, but it is not 350 points good. It's like 275 good, but it's super duper not 350. And it was fringe playable at 350, but you already didn't really take him. And then they nerfed it, and they didn't change anything else. They let him go through walls. So he's like way too expensive for what he does now. He does not provide a knight's worth of utility to an army. You could take him, or you could take Canis Rex. Like I know which one my opponent is more scared of. It's not the dude who moves 8 inches, let me tell you that. It's the guy with the 4 damage laser cannon for a gun. Space Marines aren't bad, it's just a bunch of noobs tanking the stats. I don't think that's actually true. Like, unironically, I think that has been true in the past. I don't think it's true anymore. And to be clear, Space Marines, like, if you look at holistically, Adeptus Astartes, the faction, not bad. Actually, probably the best in the game. The problem is the non-compliant chapters are basically getting tanked because there is literally no reason to ever play them. And even if they were stronger, they would be worse than the top of the faction. So it's a problem of internal balance, but the problem with internal balance of Space Marines is always that Space Marines have so much breadth that you can't really, as much as I would like to, you can't really approach them as a single like monolith of a faction because they have so much optionality inside them. There's so many different ways to play them, and there's so many people who will only specifically play one way or another. And it's just like not feasible to only sort of balance the very specific parts. I think that there was there certainly at the beginning of the edition was an argument to be made that it was I don't know if like a Space Marines having a bad win rate was entirely representative. I think it is now, because now that we're seeing like additional supplements and stuff come out, there's like you look at almost the entire basic Space Marine chapter, the Codex, and there's literally no reason to play it if you also have Space Wolves available to you, and that sucks. That sucks super hard. There's like no winning basically. You can't just be like, Space Marines are okay because Space Wolves are okay. Because that population is so large, basically. Make Outriders cheaper? Yeah. I mean, there's like, you could go through the Space Marine Codex because they have so many data sheets, and you could identify a ton of stuff that's just like super trash. Usually they don't do that because it's not really worth their time. Because there's a lot of data sheets in there. I mean, we just looked at Reavers, right? Like, what are you going to do that makes Reavers playable? Probably nothing, because it's just like a broken data sheet from the get-go. Unless you rewrite their abilities entirely and give them something super good. They're just always going to be bad. I think that's the same for a lot of their stuff. A lot of it's like not easily fixable with points, unless you make them degenerately cheap, in which case they just become the game's best utility units immediately. And that's not really what you want to be doing. All I want is for Silent Key to be a Triarch. Yeah, I don't know if I would expect to see Necron changes for sure. 10th has a lot of flavor than 9th edition had. Yeah, I don't disagree. And there's definitely like there's a big trade-off for like the level of simplicity the 10th edition has. I do think that to some extent it is good. It allows you to onboard new players to the game much easier. I was actually looking through old video files because I was sort of clearing out my video archive, and I did a short video for TacticalTortoise TV like 8 years ago that talked about how ludicrous the army construction rules in 9th edition were. Towards the end of 9th edition, or even actually it was I think worse at the beginning of 9th edition, because you were importing a lot of the end of 8th edition stuff, which was just like a fucking nightmare. You'd have your codex, and then your army supplement, and then your army of renown, and then you would get additional rules like subfaction rules from an expansion book, and then also you brought an ally, and the ally had all those things as well. And so like the level of rules below is super insane, and I'm so glad we don't have that anymore. But I do think that it does create these awkward situations where you have these armies that are just like left on the wayside because they were kind of reliant on mechanics that no longer exist, right? Like you could make an Imperial Fist army mechanically distinct from a Space Wolves army by giving them different army abilities, and you can't do that anymore because we got rid of all that, all the detachment ability stuff, or the subfaction ability stuff, I should say. Desolation squads can stay dead. Yeah, maybe. They did get quite a bit of a nerf in the indirect fire change for sure. So and they're as long as they don't get points cuts, right? They're very expensive right now. They got the indirect fire change, and they yeah, I don't know. They're just they're whatever now. I think. I wish my camera would stop moving. Love detachments and missing warlord trait rally combinations in the psychic phase. Yeah, I think I'm with you there. I do think that there's a happy medium between subfactions and detachments that we haven't quite reached yet. And I know there are people calling for like the return of chapter abilities and stuff. Which, maybe that's an 11th edition thing, I guess, which is actually at this point not that far down the road. But yeah, we'll see. Is it too soon for agents changes? We could see. I think it is, to be honest. I don't think that there's the GW likes to wait for a pretty wide data set before making balance changes to a faction. And again, we're not going to see anything change mechanically for them this update. So it would be points changes, which I don't know if they're willing to do quite yet. But we could see their in-faction points drop quite a bit. They are really bad. But I think, and then maybe this is a callous thing to say, I think that's the one faction I'm okay with being super trash, because the intention was not to play them by themselves. It feels like it's a bonus that you can, but the codex is mostly there to supplement other Imperium factions, and that kind of sucks. It's I don't know. It's a little weird that we're spending design time on this thing that is probably not going to see play outside of a very limited number of players, but I don't know. It's a fun, interesting challenge to play with the ally faction. Why is the Vindicator 120? I don't know, man. Compared to the other assassins, he's really bad. I actually, when I was recording my assassin deep dive, I was taking notes down for it, and I was like, oh, these seem like pretty good options, and they're all the same points value. And then I looked at the out of faction points, and I was like, what? The Vindicator is by far the most expensive. He's also clearly the least useful. He's just a guy with a gun. It's a really good gun, don't get me wrong, but we could also just have that man. We could have a person who scores a bunch of points for you. That's actually how you win games, typically. Strange to think that agents get more development time than some more played actual factions. Yeah, but if you I mean, it's it's the downside of having kind of a POV super faction for the setting. Holistically, Agents of the Imperium across the board probably have more playtime than most factions because they get played in so many other armies. Almost every other army in some way uses Agents of the Imperium, whether it's a Calidus Assassin or a bunch of utility stuff. And dedicating sort of the time to that, I think, is important. But unfortunately, it does only work for Imperium stuff. But that's what we sign up for when we play 40k. We play. If you play the Space Marine game, you better be prepared for Space Marines to have the most screen time. You know what I mean? I just need army rules. Yeah, maybe instead of just attachments. So I think we'll say changes to Custodes. I mean, I wish listed changes to Custodes, so maybe we will. That was my whole presentation, chat. Those were all my slides. Now it's just a blank screen. That was it. That's all I got. Which I think it was a lot. I think again that the middle of the game is probably okay, but and I would be surprised if we saw huge changes to the stuff right in the center. You know, we're actually kind of like, we're compressed around the 50% mark, at least according to StatCheck right now. You know, between 52 and 47 is like 90% of the game, which is honestly really good. And to be fair, if you cut this stuff down a peg, right, those win percentage points, like this isn't a zero-sum game. Those win percentage points go somewhere else. So they will appear... Or is it a zero-sum game? Is that how a zero-sum game works? I guess I have just used that idiom, and I don't actually know what it means. But what I mean is that those percentage points don't disappear. You know what I mean? Those will trickle down. We're doing trickle-down metagame analysis to the other factions, so theoretically this will get buoyed up as the top stuff gets nerfed. Hopefully. No, it is zero-sum? What does zero-sum mean? What is that? What is a zero-sum? A situation in which whatever is gained by one side is lost by the other. Okay, well, fair enough.
Should there be changes just to shake up the game?
Thanks to the super chat, by the way. Kazuma. I think that's an interesting question. I think that they do that. But I don't think that they... in my opinion, I think you're asking my opinion. In my opinion, I would rather they don't. Because the codex churn... I don't know if people call it a churn, but I want to coin the term a codex churn. Or a dish, like, I don't know, just this cycle of the game where they keep releasing new codexes and new content will naturally shake up the game. And I think what they should be doing is trying to make changes to improve internal balance of factions. Which will also shake up the game. So I think just making changes for change's sake, I know that is like a big part of game development, and that is a big part of kind of like a balancing, is I forget what it's called. There is a term for it, but when you make changes just to incentivize play of a specific like sort of game item, even though it doesn't actually make like meaningful sort of statistical difference. But if you're like, hey, this unit costs 2 points per model less, and you're like, whoa, is it good? And then you start reevaluating it, and then you do actually take it, even though it was certainly viable to begin with. They do that, but I don't think it's like necessary. In a perfect world, it wouldn't be necessary, I guess. Placebo changes. Oh, yeah, there you go. That's a good term for it. No Astra Militarum slide?
2 balance changed prior to next codex.
Yeah, I don't know. That's like an idiosyncrasy of the season, right? There's also theoretically going to be like new unit releases between now and then, right? Because we're getting the new kill team stuff.
AdMech need more buffs. A 7-1 and 6-0 this weekend, but 48% overall, so it's just a small number of specialists carrying them to mediocrity.
I think anything in the center of the game currently doesn't need buffs, is my opinion. So, like, at least according to this is since Imperial Agents. They're at 51. It's a low sample size, to be fair. They don't get played very often. But I think anything in that, like, in that sort of, like, somewhere around 47, 48% and, like, 51, 52% is probably not going to get changed. Or at least probably doesn't need to get changed. That's my opinion. Like, don't get me wrong, chats. I would love to wax philosophical about how many buffs I think Tyranids and Demons need. But I am not quite hubristic enough to not fail to recognize that that's my own internal bias, and that those factions are actually performing totally adequately. It would be nice for Space Marine to play something other than Gladius. That would require mechanical changes, I think, is the problem. There are some specific, like, sub factions that do incentivize other varieties of other detachments. Like salamanders, for example, are really good in Firestorm. They're like designed around playing that. But Gladius is just like straight up the best detachment in the entire game. So it's like very difficult to not play that. And I think that's just how it is. You'd have to go through and change Gladius and change the other detachments like holistically. And then I think you also run into weird issues where like suddenly you're just improving Space Marines like kind of generally. And I think they start to outstrip the rest of the game if all you're going through and doing is just making every Space Marine army better by updating by like improving their detachments in order to improve their internal synergy. It gets a little bit awkward. I don't know. I have a feeling we'll get Sisters nerf, Blood Angels points, and that's it. Yeah, I definitely like these big wish lists are definitely, I think, a little bit longer than the changes we typically get. Oftentimes we'll get like 1 or 2 changes for each faction just to like do something. I don't know. That they do that a lot. You keep pushing the boundaries on Blight Lord Terminators. I mean, the hybrid Terminator profiles are definitely really bad, as we talked about. It's a weird, it's like a bit of an idiosyncrasy of 40k's system that Jack of all trade units tend to be extremely underpowered, right? When you are splitting your focus between melee and ranged attacks and not really excelling in either of those, you tend to be less useful. And a lot of that's because they just refuse to like change weapon profiles from just being the standard weapon profile. So giving every Terminator who is paying the points for a Power Fist that they will use less often than their Stormbolter, the regular Stormbolter profile, it means that they have this like hybrid focus, but they're paying points for a weapon that they're not using in most situations. So if you like improved their Stormbolter to the point where it was commensurate with like the power of their Power Fist, and suddenly they balanced those two weapons. Like, that would be cool, but they never do that, right? They do change some stuff with specific abilities, and I would like to see, if they were going to go through and revise datasheets, they could add very powerful datasheet abilities to a lot of those units that made them better at the like combined arms role. But I don't know. There's also a weird there's an anti-synergy with hybrid melee range units too, in that shooting at your charge target is really bad. It's just, you just don't do that because it's bad. So and oftentimes you are also improving units with advance and charge, which then does not allow them to shoot their guns in typical situations as well. So there's like so many little tiny pieces of like inefficiency that you introduce in having a unit that is supposed to both shoot and melee at the same time. You also, once you're engaged, if you remain engaged, you can no longer shoot at all. So you lose that half of your capacity as well. There's just like, it's almost impossible without changing the core mechanics of the game or dramatically redefining those data sheets to make those units good, and that sucks. That's just very not nice. Yeah, Agent X. Yeah. It's not great to be able to both shoot and charge. There was like there was a combo in 8th edition with Deathwing Terminators where there was a strategy you could use when you arrived from Deep Strike to shoot immediately. That was the one time I saw Terminators be really cool, because you could use overlapping Terminator squads. A little different though, because Deathwing Terminators could always mix and match their weapon profiles. So you could take Cyclone missile launchers, like they're actual good heavy weapons, and then everyone else had melee attacks or storm shields, which was much better than doing the other thing. Yeah. See, I mean, you could like, there is a universe where you make like regular Terminators with Stormbolters and melee weapons good, I think. Like, you know, in some instances, it might just be like making them super powerful. What if Terminator's got like you know, they got the ability where you reroll wounds on objectives? Suddenly, having a Stormbolter is very important because you're getting 40 wound rerolling shots or something. You know, like you could just make them super strong independently, but I don't know if that's like buffing the Terminator so much as it's just like having a really good ability on their data sheet. Terminator Stormbolter should be pistols, almost assuredly. Yeah, for sure. I agree with you for definitely. Space Wolf Terminators do the Gladius Bomb? Yeah. Yeah, that's the one Terminator unit I think is actually good. It's a little clunky, like you said, Agent X, because it costs like 550 points. But it's not bad. It's like mediocre. But that's also like, you know, one of the few places that you still get good fire disciplines out of Space Wolves, because like a lot of people put it out, you can't take Apothecary by a low guy. But yeah, having a lieutenant profile is definitely good. But I think that's a power of fire discipline rather than the unit themselves. But again, like it's an effect that you could apply to the unit on a base level rather than having them rely on an enhancement, and you would make them viable in that case. So it's not there are ways that you could make the whole thing okay. Yeah, fire discipline like affects everything, you know. When do I think the data site will land? I'm hoping it's this Thursday. It could very well be later this month, but I'm hoping it's this Thursday. Good luck fitting 10 Terminator bodies with clear line of sight to anything that isn't Titanic. Well, you don't need clear line of sight, right? It doesn't matter if they have cover because you're going to Storm of Fire them. And typically the play pattern is that you teleport Homer them first, and then switch to Dev Doctrine and advance in charge. It's very difficult to do if you're just placing them on the table. The real downside is that you have to get in rapid fire range, and that sucks. But you can usually get enough attacks that you kill like basically anything. It is very difficult to survive through the onslaught unless you have Armor of Contempt. Armor of Contempt is a little bit of a hard counter. But it wasn't like terrible. It was awkward and annoying to do, but it wasn't like impossible. If Gilliman could give the reroll wound to target, oh yeah, if he was just a Tome of the Ectoclades. Would Gilliman be broken if he was if he was 5 stacked Tomes of the Ectoclades? Probably, right? That would be pretty good. The Bjorn Aura can take care of AOC? Maybe. I would rather not rely on getting a Dreadnought there, to be fair. But like you're not wrong. You could also like potentially drop a Calatus Assassin. It is screenable, but I don't know. What a G2 accusing Gilliman when Oath had wound rerolls? I mean, Ultramarines were incredible in Intex Hammer. The one thing they like lost to consistently was Eldar, but they beat fucking everything else. They were so strong. Oh, all right, chats. Well, that was all of the slides I had to talk about today. I am hoping that we get some updates this week. Obviously, I will be back live talking about that if we do. But with that, I think I will pop off. I think this has been a good discussion. I want to thank everyone for coming and hanging out. Lots of good talking here. And if people are wildly disagree with my wish list, then go ahead and let me know down in the comment section. I'm happy for people to disagree with me because It's entirely opinionated. But yeah, I think that I will go ahead and log out. I don't know the next time I'm going to be live over here. We should have some games scheduled over on the Twitch for later this week. And I should have some interesting discussions, especially based on the LGT results, later on this week for video uploads. I'm also working on a super long video that I talked about yesterday, which I'm still waiting on approval for from the advertiser for, but that one should be good, and that should theoretically be up this week as well. So yeah, lots of good stuff coming out. And yeah, live Thursday. We'll lock it in. should I schedule a live stream for it when and if the day slate drops? I'm aggressively crossing my fingers. If it doesn't drop on Thursday, I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna have a little cry to myself because we do need changes right now. I think we are at a bit of a doldrums here right now. The game is a little stale currently, but would love to see some nerfs to the tough stuff. But yeah. I'll see everybody later. Thanks everyone for coming and hanging out with me today on Tactical Tuesday. I'll see you in the next one. Remember to keep it classy, folks, and have happy wargaming as always.